So that was their qualification, and they were learning to walk in his ways. That's what's important. So what set them apart to be qualified to carry that power and authority? So as I thought about their lives and what's revealed about them after the stories we read about them in the Gospels, they all lived past Jesus' death and resurrection. And we find out a little bit more about them as we look a little further. I'm just going to quickly go through the scriptures, and you can see them, and you know them yourselves. You already know them, but just in the context of this idea that they overcame him because of the blood of the Lamb and because of the word of their testimony. And they did not love their life, even with faced with death. And that's what I want to talk about tonight. John the Baptist even said, "He must increase, I must decrease." And then Paul was talking about, "I'm already being poured out as a drink offering, and the time of my departure has come." And he said again, "But even if I am being poured out as a drink offering upon the sacrifice and service of your faith, I rejoice and share my joy with you all." And then again, "It's my eager expectation and hope that I will not be at all ashamed, but that with full courage, now as always, Christ will be magnified in my body, whether by life or by death. For to me, to live is Christ, and to die is gain." So clearly they're tapping into a secret here. So the question is, I was thinking about, and many of you know, most of the apostles, their story of their death isn't recorded in the Bible, so we only know from church historians. But can you throw out a few that you know? What do we know from church historians about how some of them died?
Violence and death.
Yes. In fact, I know most of you know famously, I think it was Peter crucified upside down, right?
Yeah.
I looked it up, and this is just one church history site. It could be wrong. They're not saying they're 100% right, but there's a lot of history around James being put to death by the sword, maybe beheaded by Herod. He was the only one that was recorded in the Word. That was in Acts 12:2. But as far as the other ones, we know Peter was upside down, crucified. Matthew, martyred in Ethiopia by a sword. Bartholomew or Nathaniel, killed by being flayed to death by a whip in Armenia. Andrew, crucified on an X-shaped cross in Greece, hung for 2 days before dying, preaching to onlookers as they passed. Thomas took the gospel to India and was put to death by a spear. James, the son of Alphaeus, is said to have been martyred in Egypt. There's no more details about his death. Simon the Zealot was reported in most traditions to have traveled to Persia or modern Iran, where he was put to death, either crucified or hacked to death. Thaddeus was also recorded in most traditions traveling to Persia with Simon the Zealot and being martyred there. John was the only one with history saying that he died of a natural death, living to an old age. Matthias, or however you say his name, that replaced Judas Iscariot, was said to have gone to Ethiopia or maybe eastern Turkey and died there. And then, of course, we know Paul was beheaded by Nero maybe around 67, 68. So I'm just reading that out loud because I feel like these apostles clearly demonstrated they put their money where their mouth was, didn't they? But they did this long before they passed away by the sword of the spear. And that's what I'm proposing to you. There's apostolic authority that's available to us. If we too make the choice, I'm not just talking about your physical man dying right now, but spiritually make the choice like Paul did to live unto Christ no matter what. He was willing to lay his life down. And I'm sure you can remember this, and I won't read it all right now, but 2 Corinthians 11, the marks of his apostleship. Because apostle can be kind of glorified in these days and times. The mark of being an apostle in 2 Corinthians 11 was not a pretty sight. Imprisonments, beatings, near death, 5 times at the hands of 40 lashes less the one, which basically was near death, 3 times beaten with rods, stoned, 3 times shipwrecked, and night and day I was adrift at sea, frequent journeys in danger from the rivers, danger from robbers, danger from my own people, danger from the Gentiles, danger in the city, danger in the wilderness, danger at sea, danger from false brothers, in toil and hardship, through many a sleepless night, in hunger and thirst, often without food, in cold and exposure, da-da-da-da-da. And why am I reading this to you? Paul said to you, and he said to the Corinthians, I want you to pattern your lives after me, just as I patterned mine after Christ. So there's some secret here, and the reason I felt the Lord wanted me to talk about it tonight was there's a quality of apostolic worship that you can't learn by just going through a lesson book. You can't do it just because you pick the right songs, or I told you which songs to use, so you know they're good songs, so I'll do these, and I'm going to be a strong apostolic worship set tonight. There's a sense where you bear the marks of that living sacrifice that's been bound with cords to the altar. And there's a sense of that Romans 12:1 and 2 reality has to be at work in your life, and there's a choice of the will that's involved on your part to say, I'm willing to die, but I'm willing to die right now. Every day I'm willing to walk in the way that the apostles walked. So just want to finish that up by saying that I was meditating, and we don't have time to probably do it all tonight, but on Ephesians 2, and the extreme, incomprehensible kindness of God, that he gave his son. And God demonstrated it first, not the apostles. God gave the most costly thing that he could give in giving his son. And as we meditate on that, our worship reality is going to even explode on another level, because we're really gazing at what's incomprehensible about the kindness and the gracious mercy of the Lord, that he would give his son. So as the Father gave, and as the Son gave, and as the apostles gave, they're asking us to do the same thing. And we know that from Philippians 2:5 is where it says, have this attitude among yourselves, which is also in Christ Jesus. Although he existed in the form of God, did not regard equality with God a thing to be grasped or utilized or asserted, but emptied or laid aside his privileges and took on the form of a bondservant, being made in the likeness of men. And it just had said right before that, have this attitude that's the same that Jesus had. So there's something really interesting to me about the fact that Jesus made himself of no reputation. He was still himself, but he made himself of no reputation. And he didn't grasp at all the insignia of his glory and of the person of who he was. He was still that, but he took it off or laid it aside. And the picture I got was of that TV show Undercover Boss. That makes me cry every time I watch that show, and I didn't know why until I started getting this ready and realized it's like that, because in that TV show, the CEO takes off all the dressings and trappings of who he is as the president of that company, and he puts on the janitor clothes. He's still the CEO. He puts on the janitor clothes, and he goes and he mops the floor with the other janitor and builds a buddy-buddy friendship with them. The other janitor doesn't have a clue who he is. And at the end, it's revealed you've been with the CEO, and the CEO has seen everything you've done, good or bad, but usually it's good in that one. And then they praise the co-janitor for how awesome he is. And so that's the idea, is that Jesus divested himself outwardly of all the entrappings of his glory and came and made himself of no reputation. And so there's practical applications for this, because in apostolic worship, you have the opportunity to lay your life down. If you want to be a leader in it, you get to lay your life down and make room for others. And it's no longer about your glory or you being puffed up or you being seen, but you get the opportunity to pave a way by going low for others. And I'm just proposing that that's what the apostles have told us to do. It's what we've been told to do based on what Jesus has said to us. And I don't have time to do everything I wanted to do tonight, but I do want to, I was really struck with John 12:23. So I just want to share that little piece with you guys. It said, I want to read it from the Passion. Becky reads this all the time, but it says, now, Jesus replied to them, now is the time for the Son of Man to be glorified. Let me make this clear. A single grain of wheat will never be more than a single grain of wheat unless it drops into the ground and dies. Because then it sprouts and produces a great harvest of wheat, all because one grain died. The person who loves his life and pampers himself will miss true life. But the one who detaches his life from this world and abandons himself to me will find true life and enjoy it forever. If you want to be my disciple, follow me, and you will go where I am going. And if you truly follow me as my disciple, the Father will shower his favor upon your life. So we're looking for that. And really the only path to authority and greatness, the kind of authority that's going to transform regions, is coming from this type of Romans 12:1 and 2, laid down life. And so there's a call to action for me tonight. Let me just read this too. The source of power and authority in apostolic worship, you can't separate authority from apostolic worship, and you can't manufacture authority. Apostolic authority comes from laid down lives. And there's a sphere for each one of us. And for me, maybe it's on a stage on a Saturday night, leading worship, or going out in the regional leading worship. But for you guys, there's a lot of diversity in this class of the way that your worship expression looks and how you as a worshiper affect your sphere. But you have the opportunity as a worshiper in your sphere to have the kind of authority that's going to transform that region, transform that sphere. But it really is coming as we follow in the ways of Jesus. And this is what was in my heart in the night. And the verse that really stuck out to me was Psalm 118:27. Bind the sacrifice with cords to the horns of the altar. It's an interesting worship verse, not the one you normally would hear. And in the Passion, it says, "For the Lord God has brought us his glory light. I offer him my life and joyous sacrifice. Tied tightly to your altar, I will bring you praise. For you are the God of my life, and I lift you high, exalting you to the highest place." So I just wanted to encourage us to tell God, it's really, Oswald Chambers says, it's really an act of your will, not your emotions. To just consecrate yourself again and tell God you're ready to be offered as a sacrifice for him. And really that you're going to accept whatever comes, like what came from Paul, no matter what it is, without the complaints. So there's a difference that's going to take place in your will. And then once you've experienced that crisis in your will, you will take no thought of the cost when it affects you externally. And I see a lot of people right now fighting that fight. And that's why I wanted to bring this message tonight. The fight of the will, choosing to tie themselves to the altar, to become that living sacrifice. And I like that idea that it's not, I'm going to have that right here. Nothing can touch you. Once you make that choice, nothing can touch you. And there was something else right here. I'll have to give it to you later. It is in my notes, though. So, but one other thing Oswald Chambers said is when you place yourself like a living sacrifice on that altar, that represents burning, purification, and separation for only one purpose. The elimination of every desire and affection that's not grounded and directed toward God. But you're not the one who eliminates it. God does. You are the one who binds yourself to the altar. Does that make sense? Your will is what chooses to go there. God is the one who burns and purifies and separates you.